There's no need for an infertile woman who can't even have kids. Leave by the end of today. By the end of today? As if you have any right to refuse. Finally, the day had come. My mother-in-law had always been harsh towards me. When will you show me a grandchild? I never thought you'd be this useless. That. Seriously, why did my son marry someone like you? How many times had we had this conversation? I've been married for 5 years now, but I've never gotten pregnant. On top of that, my mother-in-law insisted it was my fault and wouldn't listen to anything else. Wait, please! Wait? For what exactly? Of course, I'll get tested. But in return, let my husband get tested too. What? That's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. There's no way he could be the cause. It hasn't been determined that there's a cause yet. Ugh, what a troublesome woman. Do I need to show you? With that, my mother-in-law threw a cup at me. Fortunately, it missed me, but the cup shattered on the floor. You didn't have to dodge it. Clean it up quickly. I began picking up the broken pieces one by one. Ouch! A small fragment stuck in my finger, causing an injury. Why do I have to go through this? If I knew it would be like this, I would have never agreed to live together. We started living together 2 years ago. It was after my father-in-law passed away from an illness. I was reluctant, but I accepted because my husband begged me. If it was going to turn out like this, I should have refused even if it was difficult. But my mother-in-law's outrageous behavior didn't stop there. What is this? When I returned home from a work meeting, all the things from the room I used as a study had been thrown out into the yard. Oh, you're back. What is going on here? Well, a useless person like you doesn't deserve a room. What? Anyway, your room is gone. In the end, I cleaned up the storage room and started using it as my room. Even so, this kind of tyranny shouldn't be allowed. I tried talking to my husband. Sorry, I'm tired from work. Can we talk about it tomorrow? You're just dodging the issue again, aren't you? I'm not doing that. After that, I stopped relying on my husband. When my mother-in-law told me to leave, all the past incidents flashed through my mind. That's how I finally decided to leave. Maybe I had been waiting for those words from my mother-in-law all along. All right. I'll leave right away. After that, we got divorced. I remarried and eventually came back to see my former in-laws. And in my arms, I held a baby. Seeing this, my former mother-in-law collapsed to her knees. But the real story starts here. I'm Yvonne, and now I spend my days working from home. I started working from home a while after getting married. I left the countryside and moved to New York for college. All right. Let's get started today. I've loved drawing since I was a kid, and it became my hobby to create original illustrations and upload them to social media and websites. Huh? I got an email. Who could it be from? When I opened the email, it was from a design company. They had seen my illustrations and wanted to offer me a job. So, I started working part-time for that company. And that's where I met Mike, who would later become my husband. Thank you. Your drawings are really amazing. I'm looking forward to working with you. Yes. I'll do my best. Well, let's get started right away. From then on, I devoted myself to my part-time job. Before I knew it, 4 years had passed. In the end, I didn't look for a job and just continued working at the company where I was a part-timer. So, you're not coming back here? Yeah, I found something I want to do here. Then give it your best. Your mom and I are rooting for you. I kept in frequent contact with my parents back home, and we had a good relationship. On my days off, I'd visit my hometown, have fun with my family and friends, and use that energy to get back to my life in the city. Take care. Yep. Next time, bring a boyfriend or 2. 2 boyfriends. Well, maybe if I feel like it. After a long holiday, I returned to New York, and Mike invited me to dinner, saying he had something to talk about. So, what did you want to talk about? Will you go out with me? Huh? Is it a no? It was in the 4th year after I first met Mike. Mike was about 4 years my senior and worked in the sales department. I was in the production department, so we didn't see each other often, but we had drinks after work and hung out with a few people on weekends, gradually getting to know each other better. So, when he confessed his feelings, I was surprised but not unhappy. If you're okay with me, I'd love to. Oh, thank goodness. Mike looked like he was about to cry. Hey, don't cry. I'm not crying. We continued dating smoothly and eventually got engaged. The first step was to visit my parents back in Nebraska. Nice to meet you. I'm Mike. It's a nice day today, isn't it? Huh? You're too nervous. Sorry. Don't worry about it. I was the same way when I went to introduce myself before my wedding. Really? That little incident seemed to break the ice, and they hit it off. Before I knew it, they were having a drinking party, and I was left out. Once they start, there's no stopping them. My mom sighed. But it's great that they get along. Yes. You found a good man. Yeah, I think so. The drinking party lasted until night, and Mike ended up staying at our house. The next morning. Sorry about last night. I fell asleep before I knew it. Don't worry about it. I had a great time drinking with you. Thank you. Take good care of Yvonne for us. I will make her happy. The visit to my parents was a success. Now, the only thing left was to visit Mike's parents. I thought our future would be bright. When we went to visit his family, I met my future mother-in-law, who would later become my arch-nemesis. Yvonne, right? Thanks for coming. My mother-in-law greeted me with a smile. She seemed to be considerate of my nervousness, asking about my job and hometown. I thought we would get along well, but... Sorry, I need to use the restroom. Mike said as he stepped away. The moment he left, my mother-in-law's smiling face changed completely. So, you're going to be a stay-at-home wife once you're married, right? Huh? I couldn't respond immediately to her sudden question. Ignoring me, she continued talking. You need to have kids while you're young. My husband was the same, always making excuses and delaying things. You understand, right, Yvonne? She then started talking about her younger days. After she finished, she said something shocking. In short, what I'm saying is that a wife who can't have kids is useless. Why would you say that? I've been told that all my life. I couldn't forget the look of resentment on her face. I understood her point. But marrying Mike wasn't just about having kids. Did something happen? Well. Oh, we were just talking about how Yvonne will become a housewife after you get married. Is that so? That's... You said so earlier, didn't you? Her eyes weren't smiling. Seeing those eyes, I couldn't bring myself to say no. That's how it is. Okay, I understand. Oh, I almost forgot. My husband is in the hospital right now. In the hospital? He's got cancer. Well, enough about him. Anyway, since you're gonna be part of our family now, welcome. The conversation about my father-in-law ended abruptly, but we successfully got married. However, this was just the beginning of the real nightmare. After we got married, I had something on my mind. I was unsure whether to continue working or not. I decided to talk to Mike about it. Oh yeah, she did mention something like that. Just do what you want, Yvonne. Really? But your mom. I'd be happier if you kept working, honestly. Got it. Since Mike was okay with it, I decided to continue working. I didn't have much interaction with my mother-in-law, so life was peaceful. Once things settled down, I decided to visit my father-in-law. I haven't seen him in a while either. Really? Yeah, he's a bit of a difficult person. I see. But when I met him, he didn't seem difficult at all. In fact, he was kind and pleasant. Sorry for the late introduction. No worries. My wife told me all about you, and she said you're a wonderful person. Really? She said that about me? I never expected my mother-in-law to say such nice things. What's wrong? Mike seemed a bit different. Somewhat tense. Nothing, really. Don't worry about it. Okay. Hey Mike, why don't you go down to the shop and get us some drinks? Why me? Just go, please. Fine. So Mike left the room, leaving me alone with my father-in-law in an awkward silence. Yvonne, can I have a word with you? Yes. Be especially careful around my wife. What do you mean by that? She's got this weird sense of pride, especially when things don't go her way. As we were talking, Mike came back. Here you go. I got the drinks. Thanks. We chatted for about 10 minutes. During that time, there was no mention of what his father had said about his wife. Well, we're gonna head home now. All right. Yvonne, take good care of Mike. I will. On the way back from the hospital, I have something I want to ask. Sure, go ahead. It's about your dad. Sorry, but can we not talk about my dad? Do you really dislike him that much? It's not that. Mike fell silent. We didn't speak a word to each other all the way home. Seeing Mike's reaction, I never brought up his father again. 3 months after meeting my father-in-law. Mom's coming over today, so can you get ready for her? What? Today? You didn't tell me that. Sorry, I totally forgot. You forgot? So, what about you? I need to go out for a bit. See you later. Wait, hold on. Mike left despite my attempts to stop him. You've got to be kidding. Just 10 minutes later. Without any preparation, I had to welcome my mother-in-law. Long time no see. Yes, it has been. Please come in. The place is cleaner than I expected. She looked around the house, scrutinizing every corner. Is something wrong? I was just checking if you're doing your job as a housewife. Then her phone rang. Excuse me. That's fine. But shouldn't you take that call outside? Yes. It was a call from my company. I answered it in front of my mother-in-law. Hello? Oh, yes, that will be completed by next week. All right, thank you. When I hung up and looked at my mother-in-law, she had a very displeased expression. Yvonne, you didn't quit your job, did you? Well, no. Mike said it was fine. We agreed on this when we first talked. You decided that on your own. Are you saying it's my fault? No, that's not what I mean. I thought she was really going to make me quit my job. What should I do? What? Being a housewife is good, but remote work is encouraged nowadays. It's beneficial in the long run. Beneficial? Yes. You can never have too much money. Well, that's true. I thought she would be satisfied with this explanation. If that's the case, I might allow it. But there's one more important thing. Important thing? Children. Did you forget about that? Of course not. Good. Just make sure I see a grandchild soon. Yes. I had completely forgotten about having children. My mother-in-law started talking about the past again. After an hour of listening to her stories, she finally left, looking satisfied. I'm really exhausted. I collapsed onto the sofa and fell asleep. Hey. Wake up. Oh, sorry. I must have dozed off. What's up? What happened with my mom? We talked about various things. I'll be working from home from now on. From home? Remote work is becoming the norm. If that's what you want, it's fine with me. Thanks. There's one more thing. I then explained the situation about having children. Yeah, it might be the right time. So, we decided to start trying for a baby. I thought my mother-in-law would calm down if I got pregnant. But no matter how hard we tried, I didn't get pregnant. When that happened, my mother-in-law was relentless. She called almost every day and even came over to the house. What on earth are you doing? I'm trying my best. If there's no result, it means nothing. Her lectures would start around noon and last until well past 3 p.m. Just hurry up and have a baby. Otherwise? Well, that's for later. I'm leaving now. I'll be back. This went on for 3 years. The stress from it all was overwhelming. I started getting sick frequently. Are you okay? I guess so. Don't push yourself. Yeah. About your mom. My mom? I hadn't told Mike about all this to avoid worrying him, but I finally explained everything. Mom did that? She came over the other day and lectured me for hours. All right. I'll talk to her. But that day never came. Something happened that made everything else seem trivial. One night. What? Is that true? I'll be right there. What's wrong? It's Dad. Huh? It was a call from my mother-in-law saying my father-in-law had collapsed. We rushed to the hospital where he was admitted. But no way! By the time we arrived, he had already passed away. Dad! Eventually, this was bound to happen. Unlike Mike, my mother-in-law didn't seem very sad. Under her direction, the funeral was held quickly. It was a very simple ceremony with only family members attending. Was this really okay? Mom decided this. There's nothing we can do about it. But it felt so unfair to my father-in-law. However, that wasn't the only problem. Just 2 weeks after the funeral. Starting next month, we're moving in with my mom. No way! You can't be serious! It's Mom's request. Plus, I'm worried about her being alone. I understand, but... In the end, we couldn't refuse, and the move was quickly decided. I had no choice but to brace myself. Let's get along from now on. Living together was far from pleasant. My mother-in-law's unpleasantness became even more apparent. From now on, you'll follow my instructions. Instructions? Yes. I'm the head of this house. That means I'm the most important person here. You understand? What specifically? Just make sure I see a grandchild as soon as possible. I'll discuss it with Mike. Without any time for a proper conversation, Mike went on a business trip. Now, no one could stop my mother-in-law. Of course, the topic was children. This time, she handed me something. What's this? It's something I got from a friend. Her son's wife couldn't have kids either. When I told her about us, she gave this to me. It was information about infertility treatment. But we're not ready yet. How many years do you think have passed since you started saying that? Please wait a little longer. All right, but I'm running out of patience. Yes. That night, I showed the pamphlet to Mike. An infertility treatment pamphlet? Where did you get this? Your mom gave it to me. She wants to see a grandchild soon. You need to handle her better. But we do want kids. Anyway, I'm tired today. We're not done talking yet. Mike didn't pay any attention and went to sleep. After that, he started staying out late with work and social events, hardly coming home. Even my patience was wearing thin. But someone else had already reached their limit. When are you going to show me a grandchild? I never thought you'd be so useless. Seriously, why did my son marry someone like you? How many times had we had this conversation? Wait, please! Wait? For what? I'll get tested too. But my husband should get tested as well. What? That's ridiculous. There's no way he could be the problem. It hasn't been determined who's at fault yet. Ugh, what a troublesome woman. Do I need to show you? With that, my mother-in-law threw a cup at me. Fortunately, it missed, but it shattered on the floor. You didn't have to dodge it. Clean it up quickly. I started picking up the broken pieces one by one. Ouch! A small fragment stuck in my finger, injuring me. Why do I have to go through this? If I'd known it would be like this, I would have refused to live together. We started living together 2 years ago, after my father-in-law passed away from an illness. I didn't want to, but Mike begged me. If I'd known, I should have refused no matter what. But my mother-in-law's outrageous behavior didn't stop there. What is this? When I came back from a work meeting, everything from my study was thrown out into the yard. Oh, you're back. What's going on here? It's a waste for someone useless like you to have a room. What? Anyway, your room is gone. In the end, I cleared out the storage room and started using it as my room. But this was unacceptable. I tried talking to Mike. Sorry, I'm tired from work. Can we talk about it tomorrow? You're just dodging the issue again, aren't you? I'm not doing that. After that, I stopped relying on Mike. Finally, the day came. There's no place here for an infertile woman. Leave by the end of today. By the end of today? You don't have any right to refuse. With those words, I decided to leave. In my heart, I might have been waiting for her to say that. All right. I'll leave right away. Good to hear. I quickly packed my things and went back to my parents' house. Of course, they were surprised, but they welcomed me warmly. I can't believe Mike. Well, he never really cared much. I see. Take it easy today. Thank you. So, what are you going to do now? I guess I have to get a divorce. A week later, I handed Mike the divorce papers. I thought he would refuse, but he didn't say anything. I considered hiring a lawyer, but there was no need. The divorce was finalized smoothly. After that, I quit my previous job and got a position at another company. There, I met John, who I would later marry. 2 years after the divorce, I remarried John. And a year later, our long-awaited daughter was born. We did it! Yes! I wasn't infertile after all. I was at the peak of my happiness when... What? What does this mean? My ex-husband Mike sent something to my parents' house. To my surprise, it was a letter from my late father-in-law. Why would it be from him? The letter revealed a secret about my ex-husband. I considered it as my late father-in-law's final message. Inside the envelope, there were not only letters but also several photos. The photos showed my ex-husband with an unknown woman. Who could she be? She's definitely not someone I know. I continued reading the letter. Then the woman's identity was revealed. She was my ex-husband's mistress. But even if he cheated, we're already divorced. John noticed something. Wait. The content of this letter is from a long time ago, right? You're right. Checking the back of the photos, we saw a date from 3 years ago. Remembering more details, I realized it was a month before my father-in-law passed away. So, he knew. Actually, he might have known even earlier. What should we do? Of course, I'm going to confront him. I'll use this evidence to sue him. Wait. Can you do that after all this time? Yes. There's a statute of limitations for infidelity, and it's exactly 3 years. But I just found out about it today, so it counts from today. I immediately started preparing with John. We consulted a lawyer. In about 2 weeks, we were ready. Are you sure about this? Absolutely. Even if I didn't know back then, I can't stay silent after finding out. If that's what you want, I'll support you. Thank you. With that, I headed to my ex-in-law's house for the first time in 3 years. I'm going. Be careful. Call me if anything happens. Got it. After parting ways with John, I rang the doorbell. Yes? Long time no see. Why are you here? And that baby in your arms? Could it be? Exactly. This is my child. No way. As we talked, Mike came out from inside. I was taking a nap. What's going on here? Looks like you've been doing well. Yvonne! Why are you here? Maybe this will make it clear. I showed Mike the photos I had. These were with the letter your father wrote. Seems familiar, doesn't it? Wait. What does this mean? Mike cheated on me while we were married. That's ridiculous. I then showed them the letter from my father-in-law. I can't believe he would do this. Now do you understand? But why did your father leave a letter just for Yvonne? We didn't even get a will. I had one more trick up my sleeve. Don't worry. There are letters for both of you too. Along with my letter, there were letters for both of them. And they could only be opened by me. Here. Feel free to read them. Hand it over. My former mother-in-law and Mike eagerly read their letters. This can't be happening. Why do we have to leave? This is absurd. This was your father's decision. Please respect it. The letter stated that the house was to be inherited by me. By the way, you need to leave by the end of today. Just as you once told me. You little. As my former mother-in-law raised her arm, I calmly said, that won't solve anything. John. Sorry, I was worried and had to check on you. Thank you. You saved me. So, this is your current husband. Damn it. How did things end up like this? You know better than anyone, don't you? Unfortunately for you, I'm already consulting with a lawyer. Wait. What will happen to me? Of course, I'll claim the emotional distress damages. That's only fair. What are we supposed to do now? For now, why don't you figure that out after you leave? My former mother-in-law collapsed, seemingly hopeless about the future. At this point, there was nothing more they could do. Since my former mother-in-law had always been a housewife, she would have a hard time finding work and making a living. Her excessive pride would only make things more difficult. So, please leave immediately. The inheritance process will be completed by tomorrow. After that, if you're still here, I might have to call the police for trespassing. Police? Mom, hurry up and pack! Leaving the panicked two behind, I walked away. Was that okay? Yes. It's more interesting this way. And the inheritance process. Oh, that. It was a lie. I said it to make them panic. It was a good revenge, and I came up with it on the spot. Seriously. Let's go home. I'm hungry. Satisfied, I returned home. The next day, my former mother-in-law and Mike moved out. They left with only the bare essentials. When I checked, it looked like they had fled in the night. Well, it's almost the same thing. But this wasn't the end. I still had to claim damages from Mike. The process went smoothly, and I also demanded compensation from his mistress. Even though their relationship had ended, something even more interesting emerged. I can't believe it was a double affair. Really? Yeah, the other woman had a husband too. When it came out, it was a huge mess. And since it was discovered years later, it caused a lot of trouble. Cheating is never worth it. Exactly. If you ever did something like that, John. Don't worry. I'd never do that. As for my former mother-in-law and Mike, they are now living in a rundown apartment. This happened because Mike quit his job. After being kicked out, the stress got to him, and he became a recluse. Honestly, I don't feel any sympathy for them. Come visit us sometime. We'll come as a family. Now, my relationship with my parents is better than ever. They adore their granddaughter like never before. Even though they live far away, they are always our strongest supporters. And before we knew it, our daughter was about to celebrate her first birthday. A year already? Time flies. Probably because so much happened. Yeah, you're right. Let's keep taking care of each other. Of course. We will continue to build a happy home for the three of us. Our future is surely bright. Just as construction began on our new home, my husband lost his job. He had promised to pay half of the mortgage even if he had to work part-time, but he couldn't find another job and didn't even work part-time. When our new home was completed, he suddenly came up with a ridiculous idea. I've decided to give this house as a wedding present to my adorable niece. We can always buy another house. If you disagree with me, let's get divorced right away. Huh? What does he mean? I was shocked, but I knew his secret, so I was ready to happily agree to a divorce if that's what he wanted. Smugly thinking he had his way, my husband quickly filed for divorce. Then he started asking about the division of property. When I threatened to reveal his secret, his attitude changed dramatically. With the help of a certain person, his plan took an unexpected turn, leading to an unbelievable situation. We had been married for 3 years. Next year, I will turn 30, and my husband, Daniel, will be in his mid-30s. We discussed whether to have children. Bearing a child requires physical strength, and one cannot always maintain their current health. I wanted to have a child before my mid-30s and discussed this with Daniel. If he felt it was unnecessary to force ourselves to have a child, I was okay with that. However, Daniel said he also wanted a child, but our current home was too small for a family. He suggested considering buying our own home. Raising a child and owning a home would cost a lot, not to mention a mortgage of nearly 30 years. By then, Daniel would be in his mid-60s, likely retiring. I didn't want our child to struggle because of a mortgage. My mother worked full-time while raising me and doing household chores. She worked until retirement, supporting my father and me. I always respected her and decided to work while maintaining a household. With this in mind, I was determined to realistically plan for our own home. We chose a builder and our home plan was on track. Fortunately, we had savings, so we decided to pay a large down payment to reduce future mortgage troubles. Just as things were coming together, Daniel's company went bankrupt, and he lost his job without any severance pay. I asked if there were any signs of the company failing, but he snapped back, saying he couldn't have known as he wasn't a senior executive. One morning, he went to work only to find the office closed with a notice. It said the company had gone bankrupt the day before. It was a small company, and apparently, the executives had fled in the night, leaving no severance pay or salary for that month. I suggested putting the house plan on hold, considering our uncertain future. However, Daniel insisted we continue since we had already made plans. He promised to find a new job without being picky and convinced me to put the plan on hold temporarily. I thought he would find a job quickly if he wasn't choosy. I decided to continue with our plan once he secured employment. Daniel started visiting the employment office and searching for jobs online. He even found a temporary part-time job, although it was on a call-in basis. Even so, it was a temp job on a call-in basis, so he never knew when he'd be working. His actions and commitment to pay the mortgage together made me feel his determination. Since my income was stable and we could manage without his help for the time being, I decided to go ahead with our house plan. Up to this point, you might think Daniel was a very sincere husband. However, he had an odd obsession. Daniel has an older sister, who had a child, Mia, at a young age. Becoming an uncle at a young age, Daniel adored Mia immensely. My sister-in-law lived far away due to my brother-in-law's job transfer, so we didn't see them often. But my husband, Daniel, would send gifts and a lot of cash to his niece, for allowance or as Christmas gift, sometimes 5 times the usual amount. I even opposed him once when he wanted to give $2,000 for Christmas gift, arguing it was too much even for his beloved niece. When sending gifts to his niece, who lives far away, we usually mail them. But after Daniel reported spending money to send something to her, I never heard any word of thanks from my sister-in-law, which was frustrating. I questioned my husband's nerve when I heard that he had given his niece an expensive gift without regard for the family budget, even when unplanned expenses came up at one point. Since then, I've often been frustrated with his excessive fondness for his niece. Now that Daniel is unemployed, thankfully, he doesn't seem to be dipping into our savings for his niece's sake. However, his time away from home, supposedly job hunting, has significantly increased. In fact, he leaves the house earlier and returns later than he did when he was working. I wondered if job centers were open that late. He said he was attending information sessions and networking. It's great he's eager about job hunting, but he's been careless about our new home construction, leaving everything to me. He arrogantly told me to handle all the paperwork, though he wanted his name on the deed. I gently reminded him to show some interest in our home. He sighed, saying he was too tired from job hunting and asked me to handle it. I was tired too, juggling work, the new home, and household chores, so I didn't argue to avoid a fight. Later, I worried he might say I should pay the mortgage since I made all the decisions. When I brought up the mortgage payments, Daniel said he didn't want to dip into his personal savings until he found a job. He said it was to avoid burdening me, but I thought we should focus on the present rather than potential emergencies. Despite my explanations, Daniel insisted on not using his savings and wanted me to handle the mortgage for now. Since his suggestion was too convenient for him and differed from our original agreement, I asked him to sign a loan agreement, acknowledging he was borrowing money from me for his share of the mortgage during this period. He complained but reluctantly agreed, fearing I might probe deeper into his job hunting progress. In response, Daniel continued to complain, but he reluctantly accepted, perhaps realizing that it would be troublesome if I started probing into his job hunting situation. We agreed that he would repay half of the mortgage payments I made during this period once he was reemployed. I got his signature and stored the document where he wouldn't find it. Despite our initial agreement, there were several instances of him failing to uphold his promises. Daniel said he'd find a job quickly without being picky, but he hadn't reemployed as our new home neared completion. He even turned down a few temp job offers, making excuses. I didn't want to support a husband who made no effort to find work. Our arguments increased as I urged him to find a job. In the meantime, the new house was finally finished and ready to move into. But living with him, let alone moving, seemed difficult under the current circumstances. I had gathered various information since Daniel was laid off. There are many things I want to confirm and say, including the fact that he still hasn't found a job. As usual, I called out to Daniel as he was leaving for the job center. I asked him to spend the day with me, saying we needed to have a serious talk. He tried to escape, prioritizing job hunting and suggesting we talk another day. I insisted, saying missing one day at the job center wouldn't be a problem. Then, he said something shocking. Nagging women aren't attractive, you know? What? Actually, I have something to tell you too. I thought I'd wait, but it's good news, so why not now? My niece is getting married. So, I've decided to give her our new house as a present. Let's split the mortgage and keep paying as we are. What? I was already appalled by his excessive love and financial sense towards his niece, but gifting her a whole house? Why would he make such a big decision without telling me? Hearing about his niece getting married was news to me. I couldn't believe he thought he could go through with such a plan without discussing it with me. When I pressed him, Daniel suggested divorce if I didn't like it. He was the one who initiated the house building while unemployed and not making any progress. Yet, he kept making uncertain promises about work. His plausible words didn't match his actions. I was so astounded by his behavior that I laughed. That's why I wasn't surprised when he made the absurd suggestion to gift our house to his niece. It must be related to that issue. Despite my curiosity about his response, I bombarded him with questions. Are you serious? You're unemployed, and you want to gift a house with a remaining mortgage to your niece? Do you think she would be happy with that? I wondered how he could think of giving away a house we're paying a 30-year mortgage on. It's not a good omen to gift a house with an unpaid mortgage. It's like sending troubles. I also pressed him about his plans for having children since we bought the house for our expanding family. Daniel responded defiantly to my questions. He said he doesn't mind getting divorce. He used the threat of divorce to avoid discussing his thoughts. It was as if we weren't even the same people anymore. Our conversation just wasn't working. I had a lot to discuss, but it seemed he was far more unreasonable than I thought. I had already planned to initiate divorce, so I easily accepted his suggestion. I told him I was fine with divorcing and leaving the house, as long as he listened to my demands. Daniel agreed to follow my instructions if I allowed the divorce and left the house. So, I said it's okay to file for divorce first, but I wanted to settle the property division after it was official. I also told him that I needed to hurry with my preparations to live alone, so I asked him to wait until things settled down. Daniel agreed to follow my lead if he could file for divorce immediately. In truth, I wanted time to prepare for something important without him knowing. I said this to buy myself time to prepare for living alone without him finding out. After the divorce and finishing what I needed, I was waiting for the right time to contact Daniel. Then, either out of impatience or realization, he contacted me first. "What's going on? Why is our new house listed for sale?" "It's supposed to be a gift for my niece, and it's our joint property. If you do something like this without my consent, I won't pay the mortgage." Then, Daniel called, complaining about me selling our jointly owned house without telling him. He was furious and wouldn't listen to me. I waited for him to calm down before responding. "I knew you were trying to push the payments onto me. Did you really think it was still in joint names? You were so confident about divorce, I made sure to check everything before agreeing." When he asked to keep it in joint names, it indeed was. But, feeling distrustful towards my husband who was somehow making excuses to push the mortgage payments onto me alone, I suspected that eventually, he would refuse to pay any money at all, claiming the house as his own. So I changed the ownership. As expected, when the house was completed, Daniel started acting strangely. He insisted on gifting the house to his niece, believing his true intentions were still hidden. So, I paid off the mortgage in full with all my assets. Actually, when my parents learned we were building a house, they sold some land inherited from my grandfather and gave me the cash, advising me to use it for the payment. My parents always believed in paying for expensive items in full. My parents always said it wasn't wise to easily commit to a mortgage, given its uncertain future. That's why, when we were building our house, they provided financial assistance so we could pay in full without a loan. I could have followed my parents' advice, but just as I was about to discuss this, Daniel lost his job. I thought if he knew about this money, he would become even more irresponsible, so I kept quiet. Also, if I paid in full, I felt Daniel, with his attitude, would likely never repay me. I didn't want to trample on my parents' kindness by revealing this. Daniel was furious when he found out I had changed the house's ownership without his knowledge. He accused me of breaking our promise to keep the house. The house is still there, isn't it? It's not demolished, it's perfectly habitable. It's still existing, even if in someone else's hands, so you have no grounds to complain. If you really want it, you can buy it back. It's my prerogative what I do with the house I paid for in full. Of course, I could have chosen to live in that house. But living in a home planned with my estranged husband felt wrong. When Daniel realized I had sold the house, he angrily said I shouldn't make excuses. He then started insisting he had a right to part of the money from the sale as it was marital property. He demanded an immediate partial payment, saying we'd settle the exact amount later. I told him we should meet to discuss this and other matters. I arrived at the designated place first and waited for Daniel. Shortly after, when Daniel arrived at the designated place, he was about to say something upon seeing me. I showed him something before he could speak, and he was stunned into silence and looked at it carefully. What I showed him was the result of a private investigator's surveillance. It revealed his infidelity. There were enlarged photos of him kissing another woman on the street. There were photos of him dining at fancy restaurants and entering a hotel. According to the report, Daniel did job hunt for a few days after losing his job, but people around his mistress said they met around the time our house construction began, and they were seeing each other almost daily. Daniel had been playing the sympathy card with her from the start, claiming to be single and considering marriage, but struggling to find a job due to the recession. He wasn't just seeking sympathy, he was financially exploiting her, asking for money and gifts under the pretense of marriage. His actions, demanding money and gifts under the pretense of marriage, were akin to those of a marriage scammer. Knowing this made me feel sick. His sudden insistence on divorce seemed like he had had enough of everything. My talks about the mortgage, his uncooperative attitude, he probably got tired every time I brought these up. It seemed he planned to switch to his mistress, who was more sympathetic and compliant than me. The story about gifting the house to his niece was just an excuse to get a divorce. I realized his intention to use my refusal as a reason for divorce right away. He thought he was manipulating me, but in reality, I was the one in control. I had hired a private investigator when I noticed Daniel's strange behavior and knew about his affair. The excuse about gifting the house was unexpected, but I had already decided on divorce once I learned of his infidelity. What I wanted to discuss before moving into the new house was this matter. Initially, I planned to confront him about the affair and proceed with the divorce, but seeing his irrational behavior made me realize he was not someone I could reason with. So, I decided to let him think he had his way while I strategized in the background. Holding all the evidence, I confronted him. "I have solid evidence of your affair. You can't escape this. I will demand alimony from you. You knew and kept quiet? What kind of woman stays silent knowing her husband is cheating? You're no good. Loving? You were the one betraying me, weren't you?" When Daniel started talking about being a loving husband, I couldn't help but burst into derisive laughter. As I countered his statement, he hesitated for a moment, then as if struck by a brilliant idea, he again insisted on his right to property division. At that point, I made a call to my father-in-law as my final card. I informed him that Daniel was demanding a share of the property. Daniel started to rant about why I needed to involve his father, but he stopped abruptly when I told him his father wanted to speak with him. I put the phone on speaker, and Daniel heard every word of his father's scolding. His father berated him for his behavior, asking what a man over 30 was doing, and whether he wasn't embarrassed by his infidelity and the ensuing family breakdown. Furthermore, he ridiculed the idea of Daniel asking for property division after causing such chaos. Daniel has always had a bad relationship with his father-in-law, unable to defy him since childhood. His father-in-law detests dishonesty and particularly loathes those who harm or deceive others. After Daniel brought up divorce, I first consulted with my father-in-law. I asked for help only if I couldn't resolve things myself. My father-in-law assured me he would deal with Daniel, who had strayed into infidelity. I had many things to say to Daniel, who had betrayed me. If my father-in-law intervened too soon, Daniel might have fled. So, I kept silent about consulting with him. Part of the reason I wanted to delay things after the divorce was to arrange a meeting with my father-in-law without Daniel knowing. I also needed to ensure that Daniel didn't find out about the sale of the house. Additionally, I wanted to clarify Daniel's relationship with his niece. I called his sister in front of his father and asked her if his niece had ever received expensive gifts, allowances, or holiday money from Daniel. His niece said she had never received anything substantial from Daniel. His sister even mentioned that when his niece was young, Daniel attended her birthday parties without bringing any gifts. He gave only a cheap birthday card. I also asked about his niece's supposed marriage plans. It turns out that his niece, whom he claimed to be dating, had no plans for marriage, and she was puzzled about where the story even originated. She had never expressed a desire for a house, and in fact, would find it burdensome and troubling if offered. Both my sister-in-law and father-in-law were surprised to hear about Daniel's alleged fondness for his niece. So, where did all the money Daniel claimed to spend on his niece go? His sister then provided valuable information. When Daniel was around 20, his father was away on a work assignment. And Daniel got caught up in a police raid at an illegal casino. Daniel was terrified of his father finding out about his encounter with the police. Daniel begged his mother, who picked him up from the police, to keep it a secret. Under the condition of full confession, it came out that Daniel had been taking valuables from the family storage to fund his gambling addiction. Although he had promised to quit, his gambling seemed pathological, and it was doubtful he had stopped. Hearing this, my father-in-law checked the storage against the inventory and found several items missing. He confronted Daniel about his gambling, accusing him of using his niece as a cover for his addiction. "You're still gambling, using your niece as a cover, aren't you? It's quite a position for an unemployed man to be gambling. The money from the property division isn't for your bets." He ordered Daniel to return home for a serious talk, saying he would set him straight. Unable to defy his father, Daniel turned pale, despairing, and conceded he didn't need the property division and would pay alimony. Afterwards, I received the official documents prepared by the lawyer my father-in-law had arranged for me, stating that Daniel had renounced his claim to the property division. I gained all the shared assets. Additionally, through my father-in-law's consideration, I received a larger-than-average lump sum of alimony from Daniel. At one point, I admittedly felt anger towards Daniel's mistress. However, my feelings changed when I investigated her during the process of Daniel's infidelity investigation. She believed Daniel was single and struggling financially and had been giving him money despite her own tight financial situation. I realized she was also a victim, used by Daniel. Even though she was deceived, she tearfully apologized for disrupting my family. And she offered to pay me compensation, though it was a small amount. I declined her money, appreciating her gesture enough. I also advised her that she could likely claim alimony from Daniel. I told his promises of marriage and demanding gifts and money amounted to fraud, and then she promptly took action upon this advice. When she confronted Daniel at his parents' house, accusing him of deception for marriage, my father-in-law became furiously angry. He told her she could file a police report and instructed Daniel to turn himself in immediately, causing a huge commotion. Daniel begged for mercy from both his mistress and father-in-law, promising to repay all the money he had swindled from her. Daniel used up all of his meager savings to pay off the mistress's alimony and reimburse her for the gifts, leaving him completely broke. My recently retired father-in-law, having plenty of time, closely monitored Daniel. The supervision was so strict that he even followed Daniel to the bathroom and scheduled every minute of his day. Daniel was taken to the job center under his father's escort and was constantly pressured to find a job quickly. Unable to endure this prison-like existence at home, Daniel attempted to escape while his father was asleep. Desperate and penniless, he couldn't bear the hunger and returned to his father-in-law's house within 2 days. Following this, his father, disappointed and exasperated, disowned Daniel for lacking backbone, whether in staying home or fleeing. Daniel, left with nothing but the clothes on his back, broke into his parents' storeroom in desperation, repeating his past actions of stealing valuable antiques. However, his father, aware of Daniel's past thefts from the storeroom, had now secured it properly. The installation of security cameras and a contract with a security firm meant that Daniel was quickly caught and faced the police for the second time. With his mother no longer alive to help, and his sister furious about using her daughter as a pretext, no one was willing to bail him out. My father-in-law refused to take him back, suggesting he must learn his lesson in jail. Of course, I refused to help, stating that he was now a stranger to me. As for me, with the house sold and the money in hand, I'm considering investing in some much-needed personal rejuvenation. I've rented a top-floor apartment in a building I've always wanted to live in. Now, I plan to enjoy the view, savor delicious food, and take some time to care for myself after these tumultuous years with Daniel. You know, you're younger and nicer. Oh, that's nice to hear. Stick around a little longer. That's what greeted me, tired from my business trip, my husband and my sister talking like that. After mocking me, I started hearing unpleasant voices. For a moment, I thought about barging in and yelling at them. But I quickly regained my composure and pulled out my smartphone. Then, I slightly opened the bedroom door and recorded decisive evidence. They were so engrossed they didn't notice. I can't believe they underestimated me like this. I'll never forgive this. I've been made a fool of to this extent. No need for mercy. I sent the evidence I recorded to Amelia's husband, Asher. All set, we decided to confront them at the scene. Their faces were priceless when they saw us.
Ella? What are you doing here? And why's Asher here too?
Your sister-in-law told me. At those words, Amelia glared at me. I handed her an envelope. Their faces turned pale when they saw what was inside. I'm Ella Johnson. A 33-year-old working mom, raising a son. I'm not blood related to my parents. My mother was infertile, and they adopted me from a foster home.
Ella's such a sweet kid. Yeah, we're so lucky she became our daughter.
I'm forever grateful to my parents for accepting me like that. A year after I was adopted, my mother got pregnant with Amelia after fertility treatments. Since then, we were raised as sisters, not related by blood.
Ella, what are you planning for your future? Don't hold back on our account. Well, actually, I've got a college in mind.
After that, I moved to New York for college. I didn't return to my hometown for a job. Instead, I joined a company in New York. As a result of applying my expertise at work, I've been consistently achieving good results. I've been working hard every day for about 10 years.
Hey, Miss Johnson, can I talk to you for a sec?
One day, my boss called me in. The discussion was about recommending me for a promotion to department head. I was overjoyed and accepted, then headed back to my desk.
You're in a good mood, what's up?
Then, my husband, Lucas, approached me. Lucas is younger than me, and there was a time when I was his mentor at work. After the mentoring period, he began pursuing me actively.
I fell for you at first sight. Will you go out with me?
Swept up by his passion, I agreed to date him. Eventually, we got married after I became pregnant. And then, we had our adorable son. In the beginning, it was tough juggling work and parenting, but with Lucas's help, I started enjoying the busyness. On a day off, I went out with Lucas and our son, Charles.
Is that you, sis?
Could it be Amelia? At that moment, a young woman approached me. At first, I didn't recognize her, but then I realized it was Amelia.
Hey Lucas, long time no see. It's been a while, hasn't it, Amelia? Are you all out as a family? That's nice, I wish I could join.
Amelia's words made me internally groan. We came here to shop for our son today. If Amelia joined, she'd likely say, I want to go there. I want this, and we wouldn't be able to buy what we needed.
Today is a family day, just for the three of us.
So, no, you can't join. Oh, you're such a Scrooge, sis. Ignoring Amelia's tantrum, I nudged Lucas and Charles to start walking. We managed to shake her off and entered a nearby restaurant for lunch. Wow, never thought I'd run into someone here. While eating, I reminisced about the past. Our parents loved both their adopted and biological children equally. They even cherished me more, saying, having Ella brought us the baby and Ella brought us happiness. So, I always tried to care for Amelia. But it seems my feelings didn't reach her. As she grew up, she became more demanding, always saying, it's not fair, you always favor Ella.
I want what my sister has. I absolutely need it. Give it to me, sis.
It started with a keychain. Though it was something I bought with a friend, Amelia begged intensely for it, and seeing our parents troubled, I gave it to her. That must have set a precedent. After that, Amelia constantly accused me of being unfair and tried to take things from me. Fortunately, my parents were on my side and scolded her, and since we had an age gap, there was a limit to what she could take.
I'm being harassed by my sister.
Annoyed by the situation, Amelia targeted my friends next. She went around telling my friends that I bullied her because we weren't blood related. Amelia was good at pretending to cry, and my classmates started to keep their distance from me. Some even said awful things directly or harassed me.
That's not possible. Ella has always been fond of Amelia.
In the midst of this, Lily, who bought the matching keychain with me, believed in me. She even fought back against the classmates who harassed me and warned Amelia not to lie. Because of this, Amelia and Lily didn't get along. I had been living peacefully since I separated from Amelia when I went to college. However, she recently got married and started living nearby. Sighing, I lamented the unexpected encounter.
Mom, are you okay?
Then, Charles looked at me worriedly. I smiled and brushed it off.
Are you really okay? You're worried about Amelia, aren't you?
While Charles resumed eating, Lucas asked me. I then shared with him the things about Amelia I had never talked about before. She was like that, huh? Lucas and Amelia had only met a few times, like during our wedding. And I hadn't brought her up in our conversations before.
Since I don't know much about Amelia, I might not be the best person to vent to. Why don't you talk to Lily? Lily? Yeah. How about next week? I'll take care of Charles in the meantime.
I nodded at his suggestion and immediately contacted Lily. A week later.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Ella. Nothing. Sorry, too, for calling you so suddenly.
I finally got the chance to talk to Lily. When I mentioned Amelia,
I heard you ran into her and came rushing over with all the info.
Saying this, Lily pulled out a report. Internally, I was impressed. Lily was using her observational skills and acting ability as a private detective. Her skills were well known.
Wow, as expected. Let me have a look.
Then, I reviewed the contents of the report. It detailed Amelia's recent behavior. Even after I left home, it seems she continued to play the victim and did as she pleased, making me out to be the bad guy. She apparently portrayed herself as the poor sister who was mistreated by her adopted older sibling. She apparently used this to attract men, but these relationships always ended quickly.
How could she turn out like this with such good parents?
I couldn't help but feel astonished reading this.
By the way, how are things with Lucas?
Suddenly, Lily asked me that. I tilted my head but responded that everything was normal.
He's really involved in parenting, and he's even taking care of Charles today, you know?
As I replied, Lily looked conflicted. I tilted my head again.
Is something wrong? No, it's nothing. If that's the case, then it's all good.
Lily shook her head to my inquiry. We chatted for a while longer and parted with smiles. Huh, Charles? Lucas? Ella?
Oh, Mom.
On my way home, I met up with Lucas, who was holding Charles's hand.
Did you guys go out? Yeah. We thought staying at home might be boring, so we went out for a bit of shopping.
Oh really? Did you have fun? To my question, Charles nodded, looking like he wanted to say something more. He clung to me without saying anything, tilting his head.
Come on, let's head home quickly.
Although puzzled, I hurried home at Lucas's urging. All the while, Charles stayed close to me. What do you want for dinner? Oh, I'll take care of it, Lucas said, heading into the kitchen. Should I help? No, it's fine. Can you keep Charles company? He seems to have missed you. I thanked him and turned to Charles, who, with a determined look, began to whisper something to me so Lucas couldn't hear. Shocked, but resolved, I decided on a course of action. Soon after, I received a call from Lily.
Ella, I need to talk to you about Lucas.
She revealed a certain truth to me, and we decided to take action.
I wonder if you could go with him.
It happened right after that. I was approached about a business trip. When I discussed it with Lucas, he casually said, "Go for it." Could I leave Charles with my parents? That's fine, but I can look after him. You come home later than me. I'm worried. Hearing my words, he agreed, saying that's true, and with Charles's consent, we decided to leave him with my parents. After explaining the situation to my parents, they told me, leave it to us. So, I left Charles with them, feeling relieved, and headed to the business trip location. By the way, I was supposed to go with a subordinate.
That's the situation. You might need to help out. Understood.
I discussed various things with him, talking about what's to come. I told Lucas it would be a week-long trip, but the work finished early, and I decided to return in 3 days. Then, I'll leave the rest to you. After parting ways with my subordinate, we each headed to our homes. At that point, I didn't contact Lucas, but instead reached out to Lily. After receiving some advice, I made up my mind and entered the house. I'm home. I called out, but of course, there was no response. Normally, Lucas would also be at work. However, I could feel someone's presence in the house, and there were familiar shoes, including Lucas's. So, I quietly sneaked into the house. And as I expected, I heard voices from the bedroom.
You're younger and nicer than Ella. Oh, that's nice to hear. Just stay a little longer.
The tired me, returning from a business trip, was greeted by such words from my husband and my sister. After being mocked, I had to start hearing unpleasant voices. For a moment, I thought about bursting in and yelling at them. But I quickly regained my composure and took out my smartphone. Then, I slightly opened the bedroom door to record decisive evidence. They were so engrossed they didn't notice.
I can't believe they underestimated me like this.
I'll never forgive this. I've been made a fool of to this extent. No need for mercy. I sent the evidence I recorded to Amelia's husband, Asher. Sorry to keep you waiting. Looks like they took the bait. Asher arrived quickly. As did Lily, whom he apparently contacted. I felt somewhat reassured by their presence. All right, shall we storm in? We got ready and decided to confront them at the scene.
What are you two doing?
The two were shocked to see us.
Ella? Why are you here? And why is Asher here too? Your sister-in-law told me.
At those words, Amelia glared at me. I handed her an envelope.
Answer my question.
Lucas demanded, looking at me. I thought it was troublesome but decided to respond.
The business trip ended in 3 days. I was accompanying her on the trip as her subordinate.
Actually, Asher, my brother-in-law, is my subordinate and Lily's younger brother. So, I was able to explain the situation to him during the trip and also managed to call Lily.
Convinced? Now, why don't you check the contents?
Lily urged with a smile. But her eyes weren't smiling, making them shudder. And then, their faces turned pale as they saw the contents.
I've collected evidence of the affair. It's well captured, isn't it?
Yes, the contents were evidence of their affair. They probably never imagined such proof would surface.
How can this be? Because I've been investigating you for some time now. What?
Actually, Lily was initially investigating Lucas for a different reason. It was for a background check on her daughter's fiancé.
What? Fiancé?
Of course, Amelia was already married to Asher, so she wasn't the fiancé. And surely my parents wouldn't investigate Lucas now.
So, you were involved with others besides me?
Yes, Lucas was not only involved with Amelia but also with a junior at the company. The junior's parents became suspicious of Lucas and coincidentally hired Lily's detective agency. When Lily saw the name, she realized it was Lucas, my husband. She suspected his betrayal and started her investigation. The investigation revealed Lucas was approaching various women, not just Amelia and the junior.
That's, well, am I not enough for you?
Lucas turned pale and trembled. Amelia, furious to learn that Lucas was involved with others.
You're hardly in a position to complain.
But when Asher spoke in a cold voice, everything suddenly went quiet. He gave Amelia a cold, stern look.
After all, you're married to me, what are you doing? That's, well.
Amelia, teary-eyed, struggled to find an excuse. Lily, standing next to Asher with her arms crossed, looked stern, probably reminding Amelia of the many times she had been reprimanded. The angry expression was just like her brother's. As I thought this, I started packing.
Ella, what are you doing? I'm leaving you, Lucas, so I'm packing my things.
Lucas tentatively asked, and I firmly told him. Ignoring his pleas of wait for me and forgive me, I continued.
Let me help you with your bags. Oh, thank you.
No problem.
I'll send your things to this house, Amelia.
Asher said, carrying my luggage for me, and we left the house with a smile. As we left, they started yelling, but...
Enough already! You idiots!
Lily scolded them sharply. Instantly, they screamed in fright and fell silent. Leaving them behind, we confidently exited the house. Then I parted ways with Lily and Asher and went to my parents' house where Charles was.
Turns out, there was an affair after all.
I told my parents that Amelia and Lucas were indeed having an affair. Hearing this, they sighed deeply and consoled me with apologetic expressions.
Don't feel sad, it's not your fault.
I had already been informed by Lily about their affair. The day after she shared the information with me, she said, I can't stay silent about this, and revealed everything. Even Lily's evidence alone could have been enough for a divorce. But somewhere in my heart, I wanted to believe in Lucas. That's why I didn't divorce him until I saw it with my own eyes.
Charles, were you a good boy?
Feeling sorry for my worried parents, I changed the subject. Smiling, my parents responded.
He's just like you, a good kid. Such a sweet child.
Charles, praised by his beloved grandparents, smiled happily. I was glad I left him here.
Sorry, can I stay here for a while?
To my question, they nodded, of course. A few hours later. As we were chatting and eating the souvenirs from my business trip.
I knew you'd be here.
Amelia barged in.
It's your fault that Asher and I are getting divorced. If it weren't for you.
Amelia glared at me, yelling those words. As I hugged a frightened Charles and was about to retort.
Get out. You're no daughter of ours.
Instead, my parents yelled back at her. Her focus shifted to them.
What are you talking about? I'm your real daughter. Our daughter is only Ella. You were spoiled by your grandmother and grew up to be terrible. We can't think of you as our daughter anymore.
My parents responded in an exasperated tone to Amelia's words. Yes, Amelia's twisted nature was triggered by our grandmother. She never accepted me, the adopted child, and doted on Amelia, her biological granddaughter. As a result, Amelia disregarded our parents' warnings and used me, the adopted sister, for her advantage.
I always wanted to be real sisters with you.
I could tell that struck a nerve with Amelia.
You always act like that, thinking you're better than me just because you're not a biological child, even having a child of your own, something I couldn't do. I wanted a child with Asher too.
Amelia ranted and raved. Indeed, she had no children. But that was her own doing, as her actions with various men resulted in her being unable to have children.
You have no right to say such things to me. Shut up!
Amelia raised her hand at my words. But as I braced myself, Charles stepped in between us. This is bad, Charles might be in danger.
No, don't do this.
Before she could reach Charles, my father grabbed her hand and stopped her. Then forcibly threw her out. Watching her leave, I hugged Charles.
Don't do dangerous things like that. Sorry, I just wanted to protect Mom.
As my parents said, Charles really is a good kid. I thanked him and stroked his head. Later, Amelia reluctantly went to Lucas.
Lucas got sued for marriage fraud by the junior's parents.
Lily informed me later. Moreover, it was discovered that Lucas had been engaging in affairs during work hours. Naturally, Lucas was fired. I thought I would never see him again, but he was more persistent than I expected.
Please, Ella! Help me!
Lucas, who had been lying in wait outside the company, clung to me as I arrived at work. Even as I ignored him and tried to enter the company, he kept obstinately getting in my way.
If you're going to cling like that, why did you cheat? I know it. You're the one who approached first. Well.
Yes, Lucas was the one who approached first. That day, after I went to bed, he found Amelia's address from New Year's greeting cards and visited her, claiming it was a work call. Amelia, a stay-at-home wife, was at home and welcomed him with, "Ella was rude yesterday, wasn't she?" That's how he managed to get into her house and start their affair.
Lily confronted Amelia for me.
After returning to our respective homes, I told Lily about Amelia's visit. Knowing that Charles could have been hurt, Lily, infuriated, went after Amelia, who had been chased out. Amelia hadn't reached her house yet and was caught by Lily before she could escape. Confronted by Lily, Amelia, triggered by her trauma, spilled everything.
Did you really think I would help you? But I was really serious about you.
What is he even talking about? If that were true, he wouldn't have cheated in the first place. While thinking about this, I was about to call the police, reaching for my smartphone.
Enough already. I'll sue you for business interference.
At that moment, Asher arrived. He pulled me towards him and once again gave Lucas a cold look.
A guy like you, we don't need in our company. What?
Actually, Asher will be the next president of this company. I joined this company due to the good relationship I've had with them for a long time. Because of my excellent performance, Asher was assigned as my subordinate. And he was training to become the next president.
You're kidding, right?
Lucas, unaware of this, looked at Asher in disbelief.
It's not a joke. Leave now.
Asher's demeanor showed no sign of reconsideration. Dejected, Lucas left. By the way, Amelia knew about Asher's upcoming role as the next president. Furthermore, it seems Amelia genuinely loved Asher.
Getting a divorce was really tough.
Asher confided. I comforted him with a pat on the shoulder. And Asher gave me a troubled smile in return. Later.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you for your hard work.
I was called in by the president.
My son owes you one. And about Lucas, it's unfortunate.
The president started discussing the matter, looking a bit conflicted. Asher, concerned about the recent events, was going to train in a subsidiary for a while. It was probably a good idea to put some physical distance between him and Amelia, considering her persistence.
So, I've been thinking about handing over the project I had planned for my son to you. Of course, the promotion to department head that was originally planned will still stand.
I felt honored by this and agreed to take on the responsibility. With this, I should be able to live comfortably even without Lucas. Since I'll be busy, my parents have agreed to look after Charles. By the way, Lucas wasn't taking care of Charles. You know, I was actually staying with my dad's parents. He had been staying with his in-laws, and it seemed they weren't too happy about it. Charles confided to me secretly one day. I vowed to myself that I wouldn't let him feel that way anymore. Fortunately, my parents, who are not biologically related to Charles, adore him as their own grandchild. With these worries gone, I'm even more motivated to work hard. It seems that Asher also managed to successfully distance himself from Amelia.
That kid is doing well in a subsidiary.
Lily told me when we had tea together. At that time, I learned about Asher's situation.
Asher has always been a hard worker. I'm sure he'll be fine. Yeah, about that. I was wondering if you could meet him sometime to show your support? I'll take care of Charles.
Surprised, I tilted my head in response. I don't mind meeting him. But from the way she said it, it sounds like she wants us to meet alone.
Well, I guess you'll understand once you meet him,
she said with a mischievous smile. I don't fully understand the situation, but I've decided to meet with Asher. Charles is being looked after by Lily, a little distance away.
I was surprised when you suddenly wanted to meet. Yes, well, I have been wondering how you've been since then. Thanks to you. It's still new to me, but I'm doing my best,"
Asher said with a smile. I felt bad about the trouble caused because of Amelia, and I wanted him to be happy. As I was thinking this, Asher looked at me seriously and said, "I like you, Ella."
"What?"
I was taken aback by his sudden confession. Apparently, Asher has liked me for a long time. However, due to the age difference, I only saw him as a younger brother. Because of this, he had given up on me. That's why I got together with Amelia, who said she would console me. It seems Amelia knew that he had feelings for me. She took advantage of that knowledge to start a relationship with him. When I married Lucas, Asher completely moved on and decided to marry Amelia. I did love Amelia. I don't know what she was thinking when she approached me, but she was a support to me. Amelia must have really loved Asher too. That's why, among many men, she chose to marry him. But now they are divorced, and she's angry at me. I was quite shocked when I found out about Amelia's betrayal through my sister. You've had a tough time, Asher. I'm sorry, I'm not ready for those feelings yet. Besides, I want to prioritize Charles right now. I understand. I'm not in a rush for an answer," he said with a smile. I was touched by the loving look he gave me, and my heart skipped a beat.
"Mommy, are you done talking?" Yes. "We're done,"
I replied, turning my attention to my son Charles as he ran up to us. I lifted him up, now noticeably heavier, and he smiled happily.
"Charles, I hope we can continue to be good friends." "Huh? Asher, we're already friends, aren't we?"
Asher, being Charles's uncle theoretically, often played with him. Therefore, Charles tilted his head in confusion, to which Asher chuckled and agreed.
"We might see each other less, but I hope we can stay as close as before." "Yeah."
Charles nodded with a smile, and Asher gently stroked his head. From then on, Asher made time to come and see us. He gave Charles more attention than Lucas ever did, and Charles grew quite fond of him.
"Ella! Charles! Why are you here?"
While we were playing in the park, a disheveled Lucas appeared. Apparently, since divorcing Asher, Amelia had been wreaking havoc daily. The two of them had paid a substantial alimony, and Lucas couldn't afford to replace the furniture and appliances Amelia had destroyed. Hence, his disheveled appearance.
"You must have missed Daddy. Let's be together again, the three of us."
"I don't need Daddy," Charles interrupted Lucas firmly. Lucas, taken aback, asked, "You don't?" "Me and Mommy, Daddy doesn't like us, right?"
"Well, that's not."
"Mommy and I have Asher now. So, we don't need Daddy anymore." Lucas walked away with a dejected look. And I turned back to Charles and Asher with a smile. "Charles, would you be happy if Asher became your daddy?"
"Yes. I'd be happy."
Charles beamed. Tears welled up in Asher's eyes.
"No more tears, or you can't be a daddy."
"You're right. Let me say it again. Please let me be your husband, Ella, and Charles's daddy." I nodded with a smile. After being rejected by us, Lucas became like a soulless man and apparently quit the part-time job he was doing. Amelia, of course, was furious about this, but he just ignored her. Fed up with Lucas, Amelia left and disappeared into the night. Lucas was taken back to his in-laws' house by his former parents-in-law. It turns out he really did love me. I learned about Lucas from my former in-laws. When they expressed a hope for me to reconcile with Lucas if possible, I immediately responded, "Charles and I already have someone who cares for us deeply." Hearing this, my former in-laws quickly gave up. "Hey, Charles, do you want to see your former dad's grandparents?" "No, I don't want to see them for a while." My former in-laws, who frequently took care of Charles and didn't feel good about that, said sorry about it after learning the whole story. However, Charles seems to want to keep his distance for now. Since Lucas is at his former in-law's house, we'll just become estranged. Because we don't need them anymore.
Asher is coming over next Saturday. Really? I have so much I want to talk to Asher, my dad.
Charles said with a smile, and I gently stroked his head. After that, Asher and I started dating. And when Asher returned from the subsidiary to the main company, we decided to move out of my parents' house. We're planning to live together as a family of 3 in our new home. Please marry me, Ella.
Yes, I'd love to.
Soon after, I accepted Asher's proposal and we got married. My parents and Lily blessed us, saying, "May you be happy this time," and Charles was delighted, exclaiming, "I'm happy Asher is becoming my dad."
I know it's odd for me to say, but Asher will definitely make Ella happy.
Lily saw how Asher loved me and witnessed his heartbreak when things didn't work out. That's why she encouraged him to pursue me when I divorced Lucas.
I know both the good in Ella and the good in Asher. That's why I want you both to be happy.
She has always been there for me, pushing me forward. For her sake too, I must be as happy as possible.
So, let's go out for a drink to celebrate next time. Ah, sorry, I can't do that. Why?
Lily looked puzzled, but then I smiled and gently touched my belly. Realizing what I meant, her face lit up with joy.
Could it be? I'm expecting our second child. So, I can't join you for drinks. Of course. Wow, I'm as happy as if it were my own news.
She genuinely seemed thrilled. Her smile was so infectious that I couldn't help but smile too.
Charles is excited too, saying, "I'm gonna be a big brother." Wow, that's so like Charles. He's going to be a wonderful big brother, I'm sure.
When I told Charles he was going to have a brother or sister, he was so happy he practically jumped for joy. Asher felt the same way, and once he lifted me up in his excitement, Charles scolded him, saying, "Don't strain Mom's body."
So, I want Lily to help us with naming the baby. Really? I'll think really hard about it.
Suddenly, Lily became immersed in thought about what to name the baby. Watching her, I couldn't help but smile. From now on, I want to build a home where Charles, Asher, and our unborn child can all laugh together. I swore that